Hi, this is Rich Daniels. On October 30th, 2014, Cardinal George was kind enough to allow me to interview him at the studios of the Archdiocese of Chicago, whereby we discussed the Christmas of his youth, growing up in Chicago, and what those things came to mean to him during his formation as a priest and ultimately the Archbishop of Chicago. This is that interview, and we hope you enjoy. Good morning, Your Eminence. The first thing I did want to ask you about, you grew up in Chicago. You're a Chicagoan. We're proud of that as members of the diocese. And I assume that you have some wonderful memories of childhood, and especially at Christmas time. I remember hearing you talk about shopping with your mom and going to Marshall
Well,
Fields.
we generally didn't decorate anything until a few days before Christmas to respect the Advent season. But nonetheless, like everyone else, you had to prepare for the celebration with shopping and with planning the meals and all the rest. Usually the relatives came to our house for Christmas dinner because my mother was an excellent cook, and she enjoyed it. But also she enjoyed shopping, and even as a little boy, especially as a little boy, I would tag along. She used to go to the major stores downtown, and I wasn't so much interested in buying goods, but I was very interested in the decorations and in watching in the toy department what they were featuring, and go visit Santa Claus, sit on his lap. Wasn't particularly fond of that. I liked sitting around the tree at Marshall Fields and in the walnut room there, and having lunch with my mother and my sister if she was with us. So the rituals of Christmas were embedded with the life of the city, and they weren't just family rituals. And then, of course, with the life of the parish. As we moved into Christmas, then the anticipation was for Midnight Mass, and we always went to Midnight Mass. I'd fall asleep very often. I remember my dad, especially if it was snowing and I couldn't walk very well, he'd put me on his shoulders and carry me home. We were only 2 blocks from the church. Then we'd have, at 2 a.m, we'd have breakfast. It was Kentucky sausage. My mother's relatives in Kentucky would send us their sausage, marvelous sausage, with eggs and all, and then we'd go to bed, and we'd get up the next morning and open up our packages. Our parents must have stayed up all night, as parents do very often. Put the presents under the tree which we had decorated. I used to love to decorate the Christmas tree. And we set up the train. My train was underneath the tree with the village, and that was a lot of fun. We did it all in a day or so. And then that night, that morning of Christmas morning, they set out the presents, and when we got up the next morning, we'd already had breakfast, and we'd all go in together into the front room and open up the presents. And it was fun because one after the other we'd open them up and show others what we had gotten from Santa Claus, which meant our parents, and what we had gotten from our relatives and what we'd gotten from one another. It was a truly family affair that shaped my life. I always look forward to Christmas.
Well, those are wonderful memories of childhood and growing up in Chicago and being a young man of faith. And how about music in your life back then? Did it play a role in your formation? And does music play a role for you now? Obviously, with the church, it does. But
Sure.
Is there a special kind of music you enjoy, especially at Christmas time?
Well, my mother was a musician, and so music played a part of our family life, my personal life, as long as I can remember. And of course, we would sing the carols that she would play. You know, the church music was very well done. Christmas was a musical time, and carols were part of the radio stations. They didn't purge the public airways of anything that was religious, as we do now. We make up all these other songs, some of which are harmless enough, and some of which are kind of silly, to say the least. But they weren't much around. It was also a serious time. It was the Second World War. And so, first of all, what you could do was limited. What you could buy was rationed. And so I know my mother had to plan very carefully to be sure we had everything we could need for the Christmas festivities. But the radio stations were serious in that time. There was a program, the Cinnamon Bear, that I remember leading up to Christmas, the 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas. It would be on at 4:30 in the afternoon, I think it was. So we'd come home from school, go out with our sleds, play, but everybody would go home to listen to the Cinnamon Bear at 4:30. It was a silly tale, but I still remember it. It was an adventure tale, a journey, a classic in that sense. And I don't know, I'm sure it's off the airways now. I'm sure also it was pretty unsophisticated by our standards today, but it was uncynical. I mean, so much of our programming now is quite cynical, even for kids. It was a more innocent time, if you like, even though we certainly knew about evil. We knew about Hitler and Tojo and Mussolini, and, so we had our villains who were really villains and a real danger. We weren't naive about the presence of evil, but we also were convinced that God is stronger than evil and that Christ's love conquers our human hatreds. That was part of our life. We believed that, I still do. And Christmas was a time to bring that forward. God so loved the world that he sent his son. And that shaped the whole Christmas festivity.
Christmas is a sentimental time of the year for many people. It
Sure.
brings out mixed emotions of happiness and sometimes sadness.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone was listening to this recording of you right now, 50 years from now, what would you most want them to remember about you and your service to the Archdiocese of Chicago and to the people of the Archdiocese? What would you most want to be remembered for?
Well, I'd want them to remember that I tried very hard to love them. That's what a bishop is supposed to do. That's what a parish priest is supposed to do. Love the people whom God has given you to pastor, to care for. And I hope that particularly at Christmas, that would be clear to them. I'm sorry for the times when my love was less than complete, that's for sure, or when in fact I didn't live up to the responsibilities that are mine. But that helps us to understand each other. Then we all fail at times. And Christmas is a time to say, well, even though we failed, there's always another chance, always. And we shouldn't let that discourage us. But go ahead and continue with the help of God's grace to do that reaching out. And in that sense, to allow God to transform your life. That's what it's about. The whole of the human race is changed because Jesus was born and died for us and rose. So our lives should be transformed. That's what he wants because of what he did and who he is.
Christmas seems to bring the best out in people in so many ways.
Yeah, it does,
That
doesn't it?
time of the year.
Yeah.
It really does. It's a warm, wonderful feeling that you can achieve. Is there something special you would want to share with everyone about what they should be thinking about at Christmas time? What we should most remember when Christmas time rolls around every year?
Well, always you remember that Jesus was born of the Virgin Mary in very difficult circumstances. Joseph cared for Mary and Jesus in a way that made him a responsible foster father. Look first there at the crib and see the poor, the shepherds, see the Gentiles, the Magi, our ancestors in faith, if you like, because they weren't part of the Jewish community. They had to learn about Jesus without the history that the Jews had. All of that is still there, and all of that is the real meaning that they should look to first, not just Christ individually, but Christ in his family, his human family. Then after that, of course, we should reach out to our human families. If there are divisions in families, and there often are, there were certainly in my family, Christmas is a time for reconciliation, if at all possible. To reach out and make that effort once again. And, can we at least talk to one another and maybe let our love grow again? It's a time to make that effort. Even though we have to fight ourselves sometimes to do it, God's grace will support us if we are reaching out to others as we should. Christmas is the time to do it. And then Christmas is also the time when, indeed, we reach out to those who aren't part of our family but who are needy and who we want to help, because it brings out, as you said earlier, the generosity in people. So look around and see where can I help personally, and then where can I help monetarily in ways that the poor will have a better life. And most of all, I don't mean just physically better, but they'll have hope. Jesus was born so we'd all have hope. Sin is not the end, the last word. Death is not the last word. Love is the last word, and love is eternal. So if we can embed that in our hearts and minds and souls and then live it a little bit more intensely at Christmas, this is going to be a marvelous Christmas season.